Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. We have a big group here, but I'm sure more people are going to trickle in as we get started. We have a great group of people here today from all over the world, all over the country. It's going to be exciting. We're going to talk about influencer marketing. It's a topic that I'm sure everyone in this room is interested in. Not just influencer marketing here in the US, but also influencers globally. And so as a result, we have a great group from, we have Meta here, we have Vish, we have Mike, all with very different perspectives. And I think as a result of talking, you'll get to see a little bit about kind of what makes influencer marketing unique. What are some of the challenges that brands face as they try to work with influencers in different ways? And really, what does it take to be successful? Because there's a lot of mistakes brands can make along the way. And hopefully by kind of hearing from the wisdom of this group of panelists, we'll avoid some of them and all be successful together. So we'll just get right into it. I want to start with Meta. Because a lot of what we see with influencer marketing, a lot of it has come from the traditional sponsorship space. And this has kind of been the natural evolution that we've seen. And so I guess based on your experience previously in the MBA and just what you've observed from kind of the sponsorship side, I guess what do you think works and what doesn't work when brands try to approach a celebrity or an athlete?
Well, well, thanks for having me. And I think the traditional contract between an athlete and a brand is we'll give you a multi-year contract. And LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and those gentlemen, and Serena Williams, or whatever the case may be. Then you get your other tier athletes who are not getting the exposure, such as the top tier athletes, but they're just as good. And what I realized was some of the brands would give those players lesser deals, money-wise, but the players, they still have the same effect on people that's watching on TV. And for the most part, anything that's on TV is going to sell. So what I've been trying to figure out is how can I sell my brand, because I was not in a situation where LeBron or Kobe. I had to always create opportunity. And then I realized when I create opportunity, I was able to sell product, straight to the consumer without being on TV. One of the things that's interesting is how can you give that same effect on social media like you give off on TV. When your product is on TV, you're more likely to sell more units, whatever the case, whatever it is you're selling. And online, that's not the case right now. But how can you develop that kind of feel where when people see you online, they feel like you're on television?
And I think that's actually a good segue to Vish, because given your experience, I mean, you've seen both sides. You've been a Bollywood actress and you're kind of on the celebrity side, but then you're also bridging it now to the more traditional online influencer space. So in your opinion, I guess, what do you see are some of the differences, similarities, and some of the opportunities?
Differences can you just elaborate?
Yeah. So just maybe some of the differences between influencers that are kind of celebrities versus influencers that are more like online celebrities or personalities.
Well, I think the first thing that we need to remember is that traditional celebrities are the ones, I call them the real deal, because they were able to captivate a large audience in the absence of social media. Social media is a byproduct, or it's just, their fame is very, very authentic. It is hardcore work, and then it was, the social media today has created a lot of new influencers. And the real celebrities depended on their real jobs, which was offline. Whereas we have a whole bunch of new influencers who've come up, who are online right now, and their major source of income is derived from the internet. Their job is to just create content, and they don't necessarily have large audience bases versus a real celebrity. And that is the major difference that I see out now.
I think when it comes to these individuals, these online influencers, content creators, because they don't have as much experience working with potential brand sponsors, there's all sorts of issues because they get into this because they're passionate about the topic that they're producing on, but they might not have all of the negotiation skills, the packaging of their brand, and so as a result it can be kind of challenging when these online personalities or content creators try to collaborate with brands. And so Mike, in your world and the company that you work in, you do a lot of this connecting between brands and influencers and kind of trying to streamline that process. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, so we actually go beyond connecting. We actually allow the booking, so we're a marketplace. So the company's a tiny sponsor, and what we do is we're like the online store for any content creator, celebrity, big or small, to sell their sponsorship directly to a brand or business. So kind of what we talked about is like celebrities have exposure, they have, they're a known entity, right? They have a brand of themselves, of who they are, what they're about. And so the conversion on that is typically higher if you have that level of called real world status. Now in the online world, you have an equivalency of that, which is expertise and influence around specific topic sets. So for example, you might have someone who's on Instagram, we have this girl, Lexington. She does these really cool beauty posts, but specifically she's really all about face masks. So every Monday she does Mask Mondays, and she has attributes specifically about that thing. So when she posts about a face mask on a Mask Monday, she sells units. And so the whole idea with what we do, and also I think with that the space with the small to medium-sized influencers, is that a lot of them create really great content, but they don't know how to package that and present that. They don't know what they're about. So if you look at like any kind of influencer, or actually anyone, really celebrity doesn't matter, generally speaking, they're going to represent 3 to 5 key things that they're known for, that they're really good at, and they repeat in their content. And our goal is to guide them to package that into something that's very specific. So with the example of Lexington, you know, one of your posts should be a mobile Mask Monday review for face masks. And that should be a very specific package with a specific price. We know what the audience and engagement is like, and that's a very predictable outcome. So we know what the conversion, the output should be. But the whole thing, I think, with anyone, whether it's somebody with a manager or it's a small influencer, is knowing what they're about, what makes them unique and differentiated, and be able to present that into a specific format that is then purchasable, right? So any kind of sponsorship of any type, whether it's NBA star or a YouTuber, is the same. You're presenting a specific set of deliverables and details, and we structure all of that.
That's interesting. I think one of the things you just talked about is just what the person is known for, their expertise, and I think a lot of that ties back to what we hear a lot in the influencer space is a word called authenticity. And it's something that's used a lot, often overused, but I think it really gets to the heart of what makes an influencer influential. If they're producing kind of Mask Monday content and then they're trying to promote a car or something the next day, it's not going to work because that's not what their influence kind of is all about. It's not what their audience knows them for. And I think that ties to the brand fit between kind of the brand's values and kind of what the influencer is known for. And I guess maybe Meta, from your experience with some of the deals that you've seen with different stars, like what have you seen gone well? Are there examples where you've seen like a really good fit between a brand's values and a talent's values, or are there things you've seen that maybe are big fails maybe?
Well, I think now is a unique time. The athletes nowadays, you see more investing. So now you'll see an athlete, instead of signing in with a brand or signing in with a sponsor, actually investing in a company that they could kind of predict the outcome or affect the outcome. Kobe just did it with Body Armor. He invested $6 million and made $270, which is better than an endorsement deal, probably his biggest deal. So you see that more and more. We see these athletes starting these funds, and now you're getting on the side of athletes actually trying to build platforms, or celebrities trying to build platforms. So there's a lot of that. It's a little too much of that. I feel like a more collaborative effort. Instead of trying to do 100 different platforms, you know, maybe invest in one platform or get a group of athletes and support one platform. I look at it from a different point of view because I've never had the big endorsement deals, and I had some that was offered to me that I turned down because I felt like the money that they would offer me wasn't the same as they would offer somebody else. And when you look at the business, if you start your own brand, whether it's sneakers or whatever the case may be, you can potentially have a really big exit and make more money. But then you miss the whole point of marketing. You know, you try to do your own brand. If you don't know business or if you don't know marketing, it's not going to work. So I actually had to take a step back and had to build my company from the ground up, or the foundation, which is marketing, programmatic marketing. You know, when to use Facebook ads, when to use like a social media strategy, when to integrate marketing, you know, and then how to even house that data. Like, where am I going to house it now? What am I going to do, right? So we've been trying to ask, you know, trying to answer all these questions. And what I found out is a lot of athletes, they want to be on TV, be with Nike, but it's not available. So a lot of the athletes are trying to do their own brands. And so for me, I had the opportunity to work with a few athletes and try to figure out how can we sell their brands, direct, to the consumer. So it's kind of like a sponsorship, but essentially you can sponsor yourself, if you use the right tools and stuff.
Yes, I think definitely. I think when you have a big brand, you have opportunities to create your own brands. I think a lot of the top YouTubers, for example, and celebrities have done that. There's this idea that works really well with authentic. I think going back to the authenticity kind of point. There's this idea of if you know what you're about, what you represent, and you find a brand that has a good alignment with that, then it's going to have a conversion, whether it's your own brand that you're creating or whether it's a brand you're working with. The trick, though, is to understand how that alignment works across multiple levels. So not just what is the product, what is the brand that's sponsoring you, does their value set match with your value set, but also does their product match with what you're an expert about? And then the last part is, what is the utility that you have as a personality, as a creator, as a figure? What is the utility you have to your audience? And so that idea there is your audience follows you for a specific reason. So with the Lexington example, they follow her for mask advice, right? For sports, it might be like lifestyle, it might be like aspirational. And there's different reasons why someone follows you. So if you know what those reasons are, and their value sets and the qualitative kind of framing around those values of why they follow you also map to who you are and what the product is, then we have what we call resonance. And that's when you start seeing the really good conversion. And I think it's also great because if you're doing your own brand, if it's about something that you're passionate about, you're gonna have automatic resonance because it's like that's what you build your audience for. People are following you for you. And so that's a really good alignment as well.
No, exactly. So you kind of have these two paths, and I think you both touched on this, where on one hand, an influencer can work with the brand that fits their reputation, what they're known for, and in some cases it's easier because you don't have to worry about that whole business side of figuring out just how do we get the product to market and all that stuff. But then there is the other side where they can go to market with their own product, their own brand, and it's something that they can control from start to finish.
Can I ask a question? So when you get the data and you know the reason that they're following you, then is there like a limitation on the type of product that you can sell? Like, and what product are you thinking about? Is it a publication? Is it an app? Is it sneakers? Is it ads? Is it a blog? Is it a cooking kind of show?
Yeah, I mean, it's very individualized, right? So one of the things we do is when a creator signs up on our platform, we ask them to tell us about who they are, and we also ask them about what the package is, what type of stuff they do. And based on that, they may be really good for one, but really bad for another. And it's always a one-to-one match. So from the data point of view, we're looking at, first off, like there's kind of top-level filters, which is, if, classic example, you have this bikini company, they work with some really attractive female on Instagram, and they wonder why there's no conversion, but they had 90% male audience. So you're like, okay, well, is the base audience even the same on both sides, right? And then the next question is, okay, well, based on the style and the aesthetic of the brand, like if someone's, we'll say, a gothic fashion person, and the brand is a gothic fashion brand, then that's a really good fit. And if that's aligned and the audience follows them for those styles, then that's going to convert really well. And the last step, and I'm kind of summarizing here, but the last step is going to be like, what is the format of the deliverable? So if you're trying to sell to an e-commerce store, and you're sponsoring someone on Instagram, then you're probably going to want to be, and you want to drive clicks, you're probably going to want to do Instagram stories, because you can put a link in that story that will tap and go to the store. And you got to make sure your store also is mobile friendly and allows someone to purchase, right? If you're looking for more, like maybe you're a brand like Zola, this coconut water brand, and they don't sell direct, they sell in like Whole Foods and stuff. So with them, they weren't trying to sell direct e-commerce sales. They were trying to get people to recognize what they do and the values of their energy drink, and then they can buy it at Whole Foods and they can buy it at Sprouts. And so the campaign there was different. It was narrative and showing people getting the drink and enjoying it and buying the lifestyle that they wanted to promote. And so it's a different type of metric. So every format, for every creator and what they create, based on the platform they're on, whether it's TV or celebrity or YouTube or Instagram, you're gonna have a different type of mechanic. And that mechanic of that platform will convert to a specific type of conversion. And the conversions, generally speaking, we put in 4 categories, which is visibility and storytelling is one, audience growth, depending on the platform, like more followers, a click or an action, so a purchase, or content creation. Sometimes it's just content creation. So you have the option, but you want to think that through, and that's when you start seeing the performance.
I think if you're talking about kind of the connection to the fans, a lot of that comes down to communication. I know, Vish, you've come up with some pretty creative ways to connect directly with your fans and really get them to take action. Could you talk a little bit about your experience?
Sure. So as I keep saying, I stopped acting around 4 years ago, and I wasn't very active on Facebook initially. So when I stopped being active as an actor, I had just about 150,000 followers on Facebook. This is 2015. And cut to 2018, I have almost 1 million followers without acting in any more films. Now that obviously happened because I was constantly engaging my fans, and it's not like I'm always sitting on Facebook and replying to every fan. But the key here is authenticity. Fans do understand that this person is being honest and is being upfront. I did try every weekend to respond to most of my fans, to maybe one single post and respond to maybe 20 of them in one go. But you really cannot go on doing it each time, because time is a huge constraint for us. And I am a film producer as well. So that is when last year on my birthday, I had about 600 fans who had gone out of their way and messaged me on my messenger space. Now what happens is every time we try and sell on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of that, we keep forgetting this beautiful little space called the direct messaging space. Right? So we started off with Messenger, where I had about 600 fans who had messaged me a happy birthday. And I was like, well, these guys have gone out of their way, a step further, to click on that send message button and message me. So I was like, all right, I want to respond to them. 600 messages, how do I do that? So my friend, who's now my co-founder, came back and said, I'll make you a bot. And I was like, whoa, bot, this is scary, And he was like, no, just think of it as a chatting bot, a chatting robot. And he also pointed something very beautiful. He said, the tools are out there, okay? So you may get scared of the word bot, but remember, it is always the intent of the user that makes all the difference. So you can really use the bot in a negative way, or you can really make it do something really transformational. So we started off with a very simple exercise of me, people who wished me happy birthday, I responded to them via chatbot saying, hey guys, this is Vishakha's virtual assistant. I'm slightly dumb. So I'm going to respond to you guys on behalf of Vishakha. As a first step, here is Vishakha's picture from her birthday. And that's it, it went viral. And within a week, we had almost 39,000 or 40,000 fans in the messenger space, unique fans. Now this was very special. I was able to engage them. B, it went viral, and I was reaching 100% of my audience on the messenger space. Whereas every time I shared any kind of content on my Facebook or on Twitter, the algorithms of these platforms ensure that we just reach 1 or 2% of our audience. Now imagine a brand. If a brand pays me an X amount of money, hell, they should get full value of their money. Why should they just get 1% value of what they're paying me? And so I wanted to see if this worked on anything else. And I had a film producer who was coming out with this big film of his in South India. And that's like with an iconic actor. So I told him, let me just give this a shot. And that is an advantage you have. Your go-to-market is easy because you're a celebrity. So he gave me full access to his Facebook page, and my team worked on a chatbot for him. And within a span of 2 weeks, we had 79,000 fans on his messenger space. We had very interesting campaigns of, so the hero's name was Vijay, and we were like, let's have the Vijay match meter, and 5 questions, and let's see if you are as good as Vijay or if you match. And there were a lot of fans who shared, we gave them customized posters if they matched 100%. And they all just shared it and made it their, display picture. Like, I match 100% with Vijay and I'm that cool. And we gave them customized posters. On day 1, we were able to send them, we had like 114,000 fans who had messaged us on day 1. And we sent them customized posters of the film with the hero's autograph on it, which was huge. It again went viral. So it's all about having that direct connection and being very, very authentic. And now we're of course going a step further. We've realized engagement is the key, but what kind of engagement also matters. You have to remember there's something called the law of diminishing marginal utility. When people will get bored of you if you message them every day. If I message my fans every day, they'll be like, Vishakha's out of work. She's messaging us every day. Stop stalking us and spamming us, Vish. So we're now trying to figure out that right algorithm, that right balance as to how much should you be messaging them. So it's the right pull and push that we're figuring out. We're also coming out with our own SaaS, where we'll have an app which people like you, me, we can open and we'll have the app will tell me, hey Vish, today you've got 300 trolls, you've got 6,000 greetings, do you want to respond to them? I can actually train the SAS and because there might be certain words that may be unacceptable to me as a female, but there might be certain words that may be okay with you. And I think from a female celebrity or influencer standpoint, it's very important to block out the trolls and abusive messages.
So the SAS is going to pull information from Twitter, Instagram,
and not just Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even the direct messages.
Even direct messages.
Yes.
So when you sign up to the SAS, you have a profile and you link your Twitter, you link everything
Right,
to
you
it.
link everything.
Can you link your websites also?
You can.
Link
You can.
websites?
Yes.
It's really good.
One of the interesting things you made, comments you made was engagement is really key, and it is. If you look
Yes.
at what is a healthy community versus a bad community or bad following, that's really critical. You'll see a lot of creators who have lots and lots of followers, and they'll have lots of perceived engagement, but actually no conversion.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it depends on the nature of the audience that you're curating. And so engagement is that curation. So one of the things we always talk about, and we always advise creators, is like treat your comments thread like a forum that you're the moderator of, right? So if the discussion happening in that comments thread or in that post or whatever is really beneficial to the community, you start building a community that interacts with each other in those comment threads, and you become the host of that, right? And that can be good or bad. It goes both ways. So especially with females, so we have a head of creator community, a tiny sponsor is at Sarah on the internet. She's this fashion beauty model, a little edgy, a little tattoo look. Super cool, but she has a lot of guys who are pretty negative. And so one of the things she's been doing really aggressively is she always interacts with her followers, and the comments she'll reply. She's creating real conversations. And then on the female side, that's really great because then those followers will tag their friends, like, oh, check this thing out that she posted. And so they call it the at test, right? Which is, did someone at someone else? And it's like a chain letter, right? So you're showing that they're referring to other people in the content. On the other hand, when you have the negative comments, she actively bans someone. So she'll every day ban like 100 people, and she has like over 500,000 followers. And so she'll be banning and killing conversations that are negative right away. But after doing that for a period of time, what you start finding is the community starts self-policing. So there's less likely that a troll's gonna jump on there because they know the rest of the comments are gonna flag them and shut them down pretty quick if she doesn't do it. And so the end result is that for brands, we had one sponsorship with her where she worked with Intuit, which is a tax company, right, accounting company. She's fashion, has nothing to do with who she is. It's on her feed, right? But it performed really, really, really well because Sarah had this great community. And when she posted about this great look into a party, she was like, listen, I'm this influencer, I'm this fashion blogger. I run my own business, I have to do my own taxes, and I've never really done this. Adulting is hard, so I'm looking at the software, and what do you guys use and how do you handle it? Because a lot of her followers are also influencers. So the conversation then became this really positive thread about how do people tackle this thing of taxes that's complicated. And a lot of these independent creators and other independent businesses were commenting on the thread. And so it was a really positive engagement and conversion for the brand because of that community. So engagement and curation is like super critical. And it allows you to then branch out, kind of back to your question, which was, can you do other types of things? If it's relevant to what you're doing in your livelihood, then the answer is yes, even if it's not necessarily in those 2 or 3 categories that you're focused on.
Right. And if I may just add to that, it's not always about conversion and always about commerce. You can actually be a game changer here. A friend of mine, her name is Shanti Soundarajan, a very popular athlete. She was banned from running in 2008 because she failed a gender test. She has the hyperandrogenism syndrome, the same as castrosomania. I may be getting incorrect, the term maybe. Now, she looks extremely masculine. She's not feminine enough as per Indian standards. And in 2008, she was barred from running anymore because apparently she had failed the gender test. And here's this woman who did not understand English. She came from a very small village in the south of India. She came back, she was sent back to India. She was in a race abroad and she was sent back. And when she came back, she was greeted with the media telling her, you cannot run, you failed the gender test. And this woman went through depression because all her life she was told she was raised as a woman. And she obviously was running as a woman. Now, she went through a lot of depressive phases in her life. She tried committing suicide. She worked as a mason for like $2 a day, which is peanuts. And she tried fighting her battle. She wanted her medals back. She wanted the government to apologize to her and all of that because by 2013 and 14, castrosomania was already running and she had the same syndrome. And her question, Shanti's question always was, why is this, why am I not being allowed to run? It's unfair. Now, I met her 2 years ago, and she told me her story, and I told her, Shanti, you've gone to the press, you've gone to the radio, you've gone to the TV, you've gone to politicians. Have you tried online? Have you tried the social media? And she was like, no. So that's when we decided, we designed a campaign for her, where she came with her own story. And that is the message that I sent out to my fans on my messenger, and we targeted only women. Because in India, well, let's just say women aren't really that important. We're just not that important, unfortunately, in India. And I really couldn't, I knew it would be very difficult for men to feel any kind of empathy towards her, because she was not your regular woman. She did not look fragile enough. So we targeted only women on my messenger space, and we reached 21,000 signatures in 2 days. We took that letter to the government of India, and she's now got a permanent job as the coach in the Sports Authority in Tamil Nadu. So that is the kind of change you can bring about. All you have to do is have the right intent and use the tool wisely.
I think you're right. The types of conversion doesn't mean sales. It could be impact. It could be action. It could be storytelling.
Yeah.
You've seen that 2 years ago. I was part of a live stream called the Telethon for America, and we had a bunch of celebrities and YouTubers at YouTube Space, and we were just getting us to go vote, nonpartisan, just like tell people to vote. And we were able to, in 3 hours, impact. I think we got 40,000 additional pledges to vote that were one-to-one, in addition to the broad exposure that was in the hundreds of millions in terms of audience. Another company that I was co-founder of, was called Kogi Barbecue, which was the first social media food truck, and it was a Korean barbecue taco. Roy Choi was our chef. And it started what we now know as the wave of food trucks, and it was 10 years ago. But 2 years into it, Baja Fresh tried to copy us, and they actually rolled out the Kogi taco at one of their test stores. And we didn't even know that. One of our fans posted about it. I was like, hey, you guys are working with Baja Fresh? I was like, wait, no, we're not. And Kogi is a trademark brand. It's our own identity. It's not a generic term. And so, as the founding team, I did all the digital and the social and the branding. And so we were thinking, how do we fight this behemoth of a corporate without going to court and having all lawyers and all this other stuff? And so what I did, this one's like not really known, but we had 80,000 or so Twitter fans, and this was in 08, 09, so we were the bleeding edge of this, and we were the case study for all this. And I went to all my blogger friends in LA, and Kogi was an LA food truck, and we said, listen, we're gonna post this article about the National Restaurant News highlighted that they were trying it out, and they're trying to catch the wave, right? That Baja Fresh is doing it. And we said, we don't want to post anything negative. So we don't. We don't want to get in a libel lawsuit. These guys have lawyers, like, we're not going to deal with that. But you're the press, and if you want to frame the story however you want, like, frame it. And at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're going to retweet whichever article we think is the best framing. And so we went to them, and then so a bunch of different blogs posted, and a couple of them were like, Baja Fresh rips off Kogi Barbecue, like it's a horrible story. These guys are a horrible corporate against like small business, and that framing was, again, that's what we want to say. So we couldn't say that. So then we retweeted it, and then at that point, all of our followers got super upset. Like, wait, what are they doing? That wasn't you. Like, these guys are horrible. And we're like, and then they were responding to us and messaging us and saying, what are you guys going to do? And we're like, listen, we are just a small company who are just like trying to do our own thing. We support the fans. And by the way, here's Baja Fresh on Twitter. And so all of a sudden, for like 8 hours, thousands of people were posting the Baja Fresh, condemning them and boycotting them. And within 5 hours, all these bloggers started to cover it. So we had like 50 to 100 like new articles in a couple hours covering how this big business was copying this really small thing. And eventually, and we got all these press inquiries. And then by 5 p.m. that day, I was holding for the right press, and we got a Wall Street Journal called us. And then so I had the founders get on the phone and say, listen, we're just a small business. We really want to support the fans. And we let the fans take that cause for us, but we couldn't say it ourselves. And then by 7 p.m., and then there was an article about, like, it was a David versus Goliath article on Wall Street Journal on the front page. And by 7 p.m. that day, their PR team issued a retraction and an apology across national news, or national PR, which it got more exposure, and the next day they did a formal apology. And so we were able to leverage our audience to protect us in a way that we could never have done on our own for no money. And then that also left, like, you couldn't Google Baja Fresh for like a year without it coming out, which is also great.
But I think you touched on a good point, because there's kind of this dark side of influencer marketing around brand reputation. Also, there's kind of two sides. One is brand reputation. How do you make sure as a company you're aligning with the right influencers who are going to be protecting your brand? The other side is, are you working with the right influencers? Do they have lots of fake followers? Are they potentially doing kind of sketchy things to build up their engagement? I mean, Meta, from your experience, I guess, what have you seen with just like, I guess maybe athletes or talents not working in the best interests of the brands, or potential kind of disasters you've seen?
You know, just from, I guess, the athlete side and trying to sell product, and I have my own brand, so certain things I would post, it wouldn't engage. You know, so I'll post a picture of somebody else wearing my brand, and it doesn't do as well. Or if I post a video, it does better. When I post sneakers, it does really well. So, you know, for me, I can tell, you know, like what works and what doesn't. You can see some of the influencers posting, and the engagement that they're getting is not really going to convert. They have 1 million followers and, you know, 50 comments on the post or something like that. So, as I am an influencer and also trying to find influencers, I try to, you know, compare it where I see what works for me and what doesn't work, so I know which type of influences that I want to go after. For me, I also like to go after influencers on TV. You know, I guess you was calling them like the authentic influencers, because TV just converts so well. You need a bigger budget to, you know, advertise on TV, obviously, and the influencer is going to cost more if they're somebody on television. But it really converts well. I haven't really figured out the social media influencer, like marketing strategy yet. So you got to obviously work with companies. You know, overall, I think testing out like what works. You know, try Facebook ads, and then try like maybe a Facebook, some content that you can put on Facebook, on YouTube. Try a Twitter ad, and try some content for Twitter. Try an event, mix it up, try some PR, and then ultimately, you know, in a month or two, you'll figure out like what's working for your brand, and then just kind of double down.
So maybe let's help you figure out how to find social media influencers. I guess, Vish, what do you look for when you're trying to figure out who's a good influencer? Maybe seeing if they have good quality with their audience, or maybe how do you identify them in the first place?
Well, so far I've not really you know, gotten any brands to partner with any influencers. We are primarily catering only to the influencer and their audience directly. So we have only worked with influencers in India, and these are real celebrities, not celebrities who make their money via acting and offline. Branded content on their page is again something that happens because they are celebrities in the film industry. So that is my experience so far. But I must say that in India it is still very unstructured. What I love about the US and Canada is it's very, very structured. You've got the marketplace, you've got the agencies in place, you've got there are agencies representing the influencers. In India, it's very chaotic at this point of time. That's one of the reasons I'm shifting base to Toronto, to be here, access the market, and then probably replicate that in India.
Yeah, I think we're here at GetGlobal. I think we should probably talk about the international side. It seems like influencer marketing does vary quite a bit from country to country.
Yeah.
If you're in the US or Europe, for example, you have much more advanced systems in place in terms of rates, in terms of agencies, and just kind of this collaboration. But then if you look at markets like maybe China, where there are very different platforms that people use, like, you know, WeChat and that kind of stuff, it's a lot harder for an American audience to maybe get involved with them. I mean, maybe this is kind of to any of you, if you have experience internationally, what are some of the things you think are unique about doing influencer marketing in markets outside the US?
The platforms vary a lot. So you have like Line in Japan, you have WeChat in China. What we found is that across the board there are a couple standardized behaviors. So one is the larger the influencer, the lower the percentage engagement. Because on any platform, you know, you have a certain amount of followers, and they can only consume so much content in one day. So the relevancy is rated on how close you are on the social graph to that person. So even on WeChat, for example, like the smaller, the medium size actually outperform for engagement. Conversion varies, right? What we've also found is that the conversion and the efficiency in terms of how good it is from an ROI point of view varies on the market by the culture, not by the numbers. It's nothing to do with quantitative, it's all qualitative. And so, for example, in Japan, I think you mentioned this as well, Meta, was that Japan performs really well. And Japan performed really well because there's a culture there around this idea of idols and micro celebrities and celebrities that represent our products, and typically those people represent our products for a long period of time. If you've ever watched Lost in Translation, you have the classic Bill Murray kind of role there. And as a result, they're more trusted. And so because that's so ingrained into the culture, it's a character-driven culture, you see that representation, even though the volume is low, the value is super high. It's a multiple higher than the US or other markets. What we've seen on the market progression, though, is that you basically have the emergence of the format, you have the representation of the format, so like agencies will emerge, and then you see platforms where the platforms are more data-driven. Something like us or something like some other platforms where they're creating directories and they're creating more specific data. But in terms of the conversion use of the markets, the adoption and the efficiency is largely cultural driven, and then tempered by, does the platform exist to that market, and does that platform match the behavior patterns of the market? Again, WeChat's a great example that it matches the usage of China, where it does not match the usage type of the US, for example.
So we have a few minutes left. I want to ask one more question to the group, but because we're a pretty small audience, I'd love to get some questions from the crowd and start thinking about it. My last question really is influencer marketing here to stay? Is it a passing fad? Is it something where influencers, audiences are going to start to catch on and say, you're just trying to sell me stuff? I don't really think this is authentic. I guess maybe this is to each one of you. Is this here to stay? How will it evolve, or what are your predictions?
I would say it is. I have a brand called Panda's Friend, and in February, we did $50,000 in that month, $55,000. And that was my biggest month, and it was all direct marketing. And when that happened, I kind of took a step back and I said, okay, we gotta figure it out, because prior to that, we were doing $2,000, $3,000 a month, and then we just had a big month, and it was because of television, and so it kind of caught us off guard. But I would say that was the power of an influencer, not having to have a Nike deal, being able to have your own brand. And how can you duplicate that, for other athletes and other celebrities that's trying to do new brands? So I would say influencer marketing is definitely here to stay, absolutely.
Ish?
Definitely. I mean, as long as you have celebrities and influencers, and as long as you have brands and audience, it's all here to stay. It's been there since, I don't know how many decades. It's definitely going to stay.
Yeah, I don't think the influencer marketing is a subset of content marketing. Content marketing has been around since the invention of the printing press, or even before, since any content existed. So I don't think it's going anywhere. What you do see is the fact that there's a shift in who creates the content, right? So mobile phones is a great example. Like now, the majority of content on the world is created by smaller, like independent people, consumers as creators, not just big studios. And so the nature of, that's really what people call influencer marketing, but it just, the nature of content creation shifted, and the more tools, like Instagram's a great example, you made everyone be able to post a great picture with their filters. The more those automation tools come out, the more it's going to be shifting to individuals versus studios. And so it's not going anywhere, but there does need to be more structure. There needs to be more transparency. I think a lot of it has to do with pricing. A lot of agencies price based on follower count, which is not, it's an abstracted metric. The right metric is the real engagement and the relevancy and all that other stuff. So what I think we'll see in the trend is that you'll see a progression more towards a programmatic approach. So for example, Facebook ads, or actually even simpler, banner ads on a website, right? Before you had to go to the individual website, you had to email the webmaster and negotiate. Now you have Google, and you're running on Google, and Google has all the data and all the content, so you know it's going to perform. And so what we're seeing now on the influencer stage is that some companies have the data, not enough that data is specific enough, and so the results are hit or miss. But when there's really good alignment, the actuals outperform any other type of marketing. The problem is being able to determine that up front. And so I think we'll see a trend with data, with engagement tools, stuff like we're doing with the marketplace, towards more transparency, but more specific alignment pre-purchase, so that it always performs. And at that point, authenticity is never an issue, because you're targeting based on what that person is trusted about. And so one last example is, like I post on Instagram on Mike Prasad about food and beverage, and I have a cocktail background. So I will make, one of my sponsorships is that if brand will sponsor me, will give me their liquor, I'll make a custom cocktail. I could do that every single day, and my followers will never think I'm selling out, because I'm still making a really cool cocktail. They're following me for that, not because I'm showing a brand. Or Red Bull. Like when someone gets sponsored by Red Bull, no one's like, oh, you just sold out to Red Bull. They're like, oh, you're an awesome athlete. So the alignment is really critical. So I think that's where the market's going.
And I think you make a good point too, is a lot of what's made this shift between the traditional celebrities and kind of what we've seen with online content creators is the barriers aren't there anymore. You used to have gatekeepers with editors or producers that would have to give you permission to publish or give you permission to put a video out there, whereas now you don't have them, and so it's a lot more democratized. So very good points. We have a few minutes left. If anybody has a question, we can turn over for maybe 2 or 3.
My name is Marquise Cabrera. I work for IBM. Before that, I sold the company and then worked for Wayfair. And at Wayfair, what we were doing was we would take these celebrities like Justin Cave or HGTV celebrities and do product placement with them. So to your point, you could say, transform your blah backyard, and then they would be online saying, come see us in stores as products. How are you seeing the shift in traditional marketing as it pertains to product placement versus influencer marketing in those same settings with celebrities?
I mean, we've seen on the influencer space a lot of product placement. It's actually an area that I think is really effective when done right, but not used as much. I think a lot of the industry is like, oh, promote my product, talk about my product, versus like a lot of YouTubers, for example. There was Rocket Jump. They did a bunch of a series called Video Game High School, and all of their cars were sponsored by a car company, and it showed off the cars really well. It was never over. They never sold it. It was a traditional, like, almost like film product placement, right? The advantage of the digital format is that then you can say, oh, these things are available at this website, and then here's a list of all the items in the video, and you can go buy it. So I think product placement is really, really great. We've seen really good examples of that. What I haven't seen is enough creators saying this is something they want to do, and enough brands going after that specific type of placement. And also what I haven't seen is the follow through. So even with campaigns, influencers will get engagement and exposure and can drive action, but if the follow through isn't there, then it falls off. So with Wayfair, I'm guessing you guys had specific posts in the video, and then there was a linking to that list, or someone can say, oh, you saw this, here's where you could buy it. And then and Wayfair as a website has really great, it's a well-designed website. So when you go to it, it's mobile friendly, you're able to make that purchase. A lot of websites don't have that. So then you'll drive the traffic, but because there's no trust there, they don't know the brand, and they don't, the checkout process sucks, and they'll have all this traffic with zero conversion. And so if you give me traditional marketing, it needs to be more integrated on both sides. We always advise people that use us that we're part of your strategy, we're not the entire strategy. And you need to look at it across the board, otherwise it doesn't work. But when you do stagger them together, whether it's influencer marketing, product placement, and maybe boosting the content that comes out of it, or resharing that, so maybe you put a product placement with a really great influencer, they do a really cool web series, you take a clip of that, you put it into your ads to target the fans that watch that series, that are in your target demographic, and you're gonna convert. But that's a multi-tiered approach between influencer, content creation, product placement, and paid marketing. But that stack is gonna massively outperform if you do it that way.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Cassie and I work for Hilton. So you guys have talked a lot about, I think, a lot of fast products that you're able to sell celebrity with what you guys have. But in terms of the travel vertical, something that has a little bit of a longer lead time, whenever I hire influencers, one of the big things and the problems that I have is how do I capture ROI for hotels, for travel. Obviously, we have some great campaigns where we can use celebrity and we can capture impressions and awareness. When it comes down to hiring maybe a smaller influencer at a regional level for a couple of hotel products or for travel in general, what do you guys believe is the best way to measure success and capture ROI?
Well, it's a company that does marketing with hotels. It's called Hyper. Hyper with a 3 instead of an E.com. And Marriott uses them. And also the Golden State Warriors, the way they uses them. And they kind of figured out, how to get engagement in the hotels. It's really cool. And they geofence, and they see how people are engaging in the hotels. And then I think, according to how people are engaging on average, that's the type of influencer they would want to come to the hotels to maybe engage in with certain events or promote on social media. But that's the only experience I had, with hotels.
We worked with a couple of hotels. What we found is it depends on the campaign type. So if it's a promotion around a specific type of vacation or demographic, you'll start seeing click-throughs. If it's a YouTube video, for example. We've also seen qualitative measurement. So looking at, okay, maybe we're highlighting a new resort. there's a general booking rate. There's also like the lifestyle that influencer embodies in their content, and then are you seeing an uptick or a fall through in surveys on people that are staying at the hotel? It's largely dependent on the format and the campaign type. So if your campaign is like a new hotel, then you're really about communicating the experience and then looking at the overall increase in visibility across different platforms over probably say 2 months, right? If your goal is like audience penetration, then you might target certain influencers to create content to reach certain specific demographics that you as a brand can't reach, but you have a key value to. And looking at the engagement in their posts, looking at the conversations in their posts as a measurement. So there's different ways to do it. I think with hotels, because it's not a direct purchase usually, and it's a long tail type thing, you've really got to look at the engagement as indicators and then look at the corresponding aesthetics and qualitative measurements of both the audience and the content as it progresses over like a series of months. And looking at that and maybe pairing that with retargeting on like paid social ads to look at the conversions there to map those metrics back, because you can do the retargeting based on the engagement. So those are methods that are like very, very measurable. But again, it goes back to the specific deliverable and specific type of campaign conversion you're looking for.
Well, I don't have much experience in your industry, but from my experience, when I was working on my friend's films page, we had a very interesting communication strategy. We were speaking in their language, and apart from that, we always ensured that we were speaking to them in the messenger space, which is very personal, which is a very direct one-to-one. So when I'm speaking to one user, the other user doesn't really know, so they know it's very personal. What we did was we did reward these users by giving them extra discounts and extra coupons, etc. And we had a particular link which led them to the booking site where they were able to book the tickets, and we were able to track that.
So that's a great point on that. Sorry, that's a great idea. Like one thing we're testing with Octane AI is a drip campaign tied to Messenger. So like we're testing right now is that if you say you Instagram story with an influencer talking about the great experience about their vacation at your hotel, you can say tap here to plan your vacation. That goes to a messenger bot that allows the user to like ask questions and plan aspects about their trip. Maybe they're not going to do it, but then you can start. That's a great direct lead gen with 100% engagement. And actually, if you want to test that with us, let me know. Yeah, because I think that's super, but I think stuff like that, I think that's where a hotel, because hotels are so personal, and it's hospitality, right? So if you can find ways to extend the hospitality aspect of it in an automated manner, like that's going to be 100% your win.
Right.
Sorry.
Just a quick question. So like, to her point, like, how do you influence behavioral change, right? So like Meta, for example, like if you're working in trying to get folks who don't work out to work out, and then how do you influence them? Like, how do you actually influence behavior change? Like any methods or tactics you guys use that can be really helpful.
I mean, in terms of working out, I did something a couple of years ago where I wanted to start a fitness blog, and obviously you want a lot of users and visitors to your website. So in order to get a mom and a dad to work out, you know, I kind of incentivize them to bring their children, or incentivize the kids to bring their parents, and they get extra points, or they get like a free t-shirt. So I did a walk in New York City, and it was pretty cool. It was just a walk, and we did the whole Central Park, and there was families there, you know, and then they continued to come to the site. Well, I closed that site, but that was something that worked, just getting other people involved.
Live is great on that. Like, you take you for a walk and you posted about it. Like, we have one influencer, Haley Bright, and she's on this whole fitness thing where she came out of a bad breakup, and she's like, she gained some weight, she's like, I want to get back in shape. So every day she's doing her yoga and her exercise, she's live casting and doing stories and inviting her fans to do it with her. And so it's a lot of instructional stuff. So what we find for behavior change, understand the utility, like between the audience member and the creator, and then educate them or guide them. And that type of guidance, we'll start seeing people posting the results, like, oh, I did this too, inviting them to participate as a group project versus as just a broadcast. And that's actually, and you do that, and then make sure you do that not a one-off, but you got to do it on a regular basis. You do it 10 times, you're going to start seeing real behavior change.
Because consistency is what will decide whether you're authentic or not, and whether you really at it or not.
And I think we should end on that. I think this is a great panel. We learned a lot from 3 different people with 3 really interesting perspectives on influencer marketing. We'll all stick around for a little bit afterwards if you guys have questions, but thank you for joining, and thank you to each of you for your time.